And we're back on 4th 4 Productions, 4-4 time, and 4 out of 4 equals 1. Also, 4 to the 0 equals 1. And Roman numeral 4 is IV. So, I mean, that's really all you need to know right there. We're going to be doing a series, and I'm going to briefly explain it to you right here, right now. This is my son, Jackson. Say hey.
Hey.
He's 9, I'm 41. So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I now realize how weird my voice sounds on recordings.
It doesn't sound real weird.
It sounds all high-pitched.
Doesn't sound any more weird than mine. So we're doing a series of, passing information down the way that we've done it for thousands of years.
Uh-huh.
Before we had technology.
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
now that we do, we think we should go back to that, except record it. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
And we hope to be able to do this for a long time, because I've already come up with 50 topics in very, very little amount of effort, because I thought, well, what does he not know about that he would know about if he had just lived through it? But obviously can't be older than you are. The same way my dad told me stuff about Kennedy's assassination and the Cuban Missile Crisis and having to dive under your desk thinking that we were about to get nuked. So also does my son not understand about 9/11 and things that happened before he was born, because how can you? You can read about them in books, and obviously me telling him is not going to mean that he now knows what it's like to live through it, but it's a perspective that he would not have had. And of course, since we're around each other all the time, it's like any kind of question pops up, he can just ask. And obviously, most people that live through this stuff, other parents, are going to tell their kids this stuff too. So it's not like this is a service or necessary, but we're hoping to do it in an entertaining way, such as while playing GTA, not any kind of, this is what we would do in real life, but it's a video game intentionally to get out, things that you can't do in real life. That's kind of the whole point. And it's one that I'm gotten pretty good at and gotten pretty, stats and whatnot. So, I was originally going to do some kind of tutorial, and then we ended up doing this. And I think this is actually going to be, I hope it's something that can educate. The idea is to move on from, topics like history and stuff that are more or less just because I lived through them and incompletely in layman's terms. I'm not going to be sitting here with notes and going over facts. That's not the point of this. The point is to kind of say what it was like to experience it. But hopefully we're going to be able to branch out into my areas of expertise, such as physics, math, quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, stuff like that we can do still in layman's terms. And that's going to be the beautiful part, is because if you can understand it and talk about it, then you know about it, and you don't have to go to college for a long time to learn these things, or the major concepts or whatever. And who knows, I'm still toying around with magic episodes, sleight of hand, cards and coins and things like that, as well as what were some of the other ones, buddy? I forget some of them. We've had so many ideas, I've forgotten a lot of them. But
had stuff like gaming, history.
Yeah, gaming.
Gaming, history, cardistry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna do some stand-up type stuff, like open mic things.
And of course,
like
news.
I've done.
Now, can we please get back
and we
to
were
the
gonna do
topic?
current events too at some point. We haven't even decided who's gonna be doing more of the what.
Okay, let's get to the topic.
But since this topic's not going to take a real long time, I thought I would introduce the people to, anybody that watches it at least, to what we're planning on doing. And I'm hoping that, people will comment and say, yeah, that was really cool, but I hope you'll do this, or here's an idea and I liked the episode, or whatever. If y'all like and subscribe, man, that would mean the world. But comments are how we will know if we're doing what whoever is watching it actually wants to see. And I mean, that seems pretty obvious, but at the same time, I hardly ever comment on stuff, even when I have comments, because I guess one, I'm lazy, and two, I just assume nobody's going to read it. But I guess they do, a lot of times, read them. And I know we would, so I have to assume other people do. And we'll just... Don't touch that, please. Do we not have enough issues with it?
Sorry, that's gross.
Last episode with the freaking kick drum going off the whole time. So, without any more ado,
Let's get into
further.
the video.
Yeah, I suppose you can spark it.
So, Daddy, what were video game consoles like back when you were first, like a kid, sorta, I guess?
Well, Jackson.
Kinda, sorta, possibly, I guess, kinda, sorta, I don't know.
Well, Jackson, that's a wonderful question.
Thank you.
Full of tons of, subjective ways to answer it.
What do you mean subjective?
I mean, what was it like? It was awesome. I could just stop right there, but I'm not going to.
I mean, you could
Because
just say
the
it was-
Atari came out in about 84-ish. Nintendo a couple years later. Commodore 64 first computer we had, and it still had the floppy disks. Like the 5.25-inch actual floppy disks with the magnetic little disc inside. And they held like maybe 400 kilobytes or something like that. It was unbelievable. Then floppy disks, the bigger ones, the 3.5-inch ones, the hard ones weren't floppy. They held 1.44 megabytes. If anybody can even comprehend how absurd that is, that we actually used to carry discs around that had 1 megabyte on them. That would never happen today. I mean, I don't think anybody will be caught with anything smaller than an 8 gigabyte SD drive, right? Now?
Yeah.
So that's, let's see, you could fit 1,000,000, no, you could fit 1,000, and then 8 gigabytes, yeah. Literally 8,000 of those discs that I used to carry around in a little, a little hinged zipper, sleeve with like 30 of them in it. And you can put about 8,000 of those on one SD card.
You could do
On the
what?
smallest, cheapest one of the SD cards that we have today. The expensive ones, like the 128 gig, that would be, multiply that times like, I don't know, 20. So you're talking about 160,000 times smaller. And it was actually bigger.
Oh my gosh.
That's discs, though. We're not even in gaming systems. So, Atari had a joystick, like you would see in an arcade. A lot of times, Pac-Man or whatever. That they still have them around, I think. But it's hard to find, obviously. But the joystick was literally just straight up and down, like 4 inches long. Like grabbing a directional... It's like the analog stick on a PlayStation controller, but it didn't have the little thumb thing on top, and it was real big, so you grab it with your whole hand, and there was no other buttons, except for one orange button on the corner.
Okay.
And it had a little rubber thing that went over it. If you took the rubber thing off, it was just white, like plastic. But the rest of it was black, so you could tell it was not supposed to have the rubber thing off. Of course, the rubber things got lost. So over time, you just had this ugly black box with a white stick sticking out of it. And that was the only way to control anything on Atari, with Kaboom and
Ouch.
Tank. I can't even remember what the tank game was called, but you could bounce it off the wall one time and try to hit your opponent. There was Pong, obviously. Yar's Revenge, if anybody remembers that. That was one of my favorite games on Atari. And it was actually pretty cool, but it was so simple. It's
Or Daddy, do you think that
about
anyone
a fly.
would have gone on YouTube? Do you think anyone would have gone on eBay, bought an Atari, plugged it up to their TV, and then actually recorded a YouTube video on playing it?
I'm sure somebody has, yeah.
You should probably look that
but
up after this.
Nintendo came out
A video
maybe
that's like 12 years old.
3 years later. And it had Mario and Duck Hunt, and it came with the gun, and it came with the 2 controllers, and this is back when everything was either... I mean, if it had an AV adapter on it, you were lucky. A lot of times these things had RF adapters. You actually had to screw into the back of the TV in the antenna slot. and you had to walk up to the TV and change the dial over to either U or 3 or 13.
Nowadays,
There
we
was
could
no
just
remotes. There was no digital boxes.
look at it. That's probably
It's
why
crazy.
nowadays people are, because I mean, back then, like when World War II was happening.
Yeah, that's not the same time, but World War II is 1940s.
Yeah.
We're talking about 1980s. It's 40 years
bad
later.
example. But
I
back
get
then,
you, man.
people were getting up all the time, and nowadays with TV remotes, you could just slop around on the couch like a little,
Yeah, you definitely don't ever have to move.
you could look like a little lifeless piece of Jello wrapped up in a freaking
Bathrobe.
slave. Yeah, wrapped up
Yep.
in like a freaking slave.
But I mean, you don't have to get up for your PS3 controllers are wireless, your remotes are wireless, everything's wireless.
Yeah, like I mean, you can literally just.
You could be
just
1,000
slop around
pounds
on the
and
couch,
not
like
even
a
care about the
lifeless
fact
piece
that you
of
can't get up.
slime. And
Yeah, you don't need to be so like gross about it. I mean, like a lifeless piece of slime. You're gonna have to cut that out. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
You're the terrible one, slime.
But I mean, the point is.
What is the point? That you don't have to get up anymore? I know.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for 30 years. How
It's
ridiculous
kind of cool,
it is.
and I actually kind of hate it.
Yes, it's very cool, and I hate it very much. And that makes sense.
It's cool, but I hate it.
No, it's cool, and I hate it. As I should. Ow. That's my
Sorry.
eyeball.
Sorry.
Thanks, pig. Just put a bunch of bacteria right in my freaking eye. So, also with Nintendo came, like I mentioned, Duck Hunt with the Gun. And that was really revolutionary when it came out.
Yeah.
But Nintendo, and maybe not exactly in this order, but the Nintendo Entertainment System, where it had Mario, it had Donkey Kong, it had all the games. I think it had Donkey Kong. That wasn't Atari, I'm pretty sure. But it had all the games that, that would start everything, if you know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, Nintendo started everything with that system, and a lot of people, me, all my friends, everybody I knew, for a good 4 to 5 years, that was it. All we tried to do was to get new games that would come out, because I mean, when it came out, there was no games. Nintendo came out, and there was Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and that's what there was.
So that was it.
Then they started coming out with other games, but they didn't release them
So that
right
was
away.
It.
At the very beginning, yeah, that's what I remember. I
It was
don't.
only freaking Duck Hunt and Mario.
By the way,
two games for the
did you see that?
Nintendo.
Did you see that turn with that parachute?
Yeah, that looked pretty damn.
I'm
cool.
getting good with this parachute.
If you would have actually been able to turn, then it would be.
Yeah, I did turn now. Look, see, like that right there.
Oh yeah, but you just did, so it kind of messed it up.
It doesn't matter. It's sick.
If it goes
I'm
perfect
amazing.
and you don't drift.
It's sick. I'm amazing. Shut it. And I don't actually talk to the boy like that, by the way. Well, sometimes, but that's a joke. Anyway.
It's just comedy.
Yeah, it's just comedy. So, after Nintendo, I personally went to the Sega Genesis, the one that had the A, B, and C buttons instead of just the 1 and 2 of Nintendo. And the reason for that was I just really thought the 2 buttons wasn't enough. And looking back, I really wish I had stayed with Nintendo, to be honest with you. But the Super Nintendo came out, and it didn't seem like much of a change, much of an upgrade. Really, the only thing it had different was Super Mario Brothers 2. Actually, Super Mario Brothers 2 was on original Nintendo, I guess. I just remember I had a friend that had the Super Nintendo, and we could only play Super Mario 2 there. So I'm a little confused because I thought it was on regular, but something in my head's getting crossed up because we went to Sega. So I had the Sega, and then
Nintendo was mainly Super Mario World.
Okay. Well, like I said, I got something confused in my head. Maybe he had Super Nintendo and 2, and I just didn't have 2. I'm not sure. But I got up to a good 30, 35 games on Nintendo, I'm pretty sure, before I got the Sega. And then I tried to, you kind of tried to build a library because the games were so short and simple that, you get a lot of games that you didn't really like because you didn't know anything about them when you bought them back then. There was no internet to go look them up, and nobody had played them because they were new. So you just had to pick the ones that looked cool and buy them. And then if they sucked, you just stuck with them. because there's no way to sell stuff online. I mean, once you bought stuff, you owned it. That's how it was back then. That you couldn't buy stuff with the plan to sell it later or any of that stuff.
So pretty much if a product sucked, you just be like, dang it, I want a refund, but I can't get a refund.
Yeah, I mean, some stores took stuff back, and you could try to sell some things sometimes, but for the most part, yeah, it's not the way it was done.
No, that just ain't gonna cut it.
So then there's the Sega, same way, and it came with Sonic, and I bought Madden, and I think I bought a hockey and a baseball game, and those were awesome. I really liked my Sega, but Nintendo stayed kind of more classic, and Sega was kind of more like out there stuff. Like, I want to say,
of course, we had a.
I think Crash Bandicoot ended up being PlayStation. Like, I don't think Crash Bandicoot came out on Sega, but
no, it did not.
But when I first got the PlayStation, Crash Bandicoot was one of the only games that it was coming out with. And I can't remember what else, but I had a bunch of games on the first PlayStation that I thought were absolutely amazing. Like Jumping Flash, Twisted Metal, the one, I wish I could remember, Destruction Derby, but I can't remember if that's what it was called or not. But those games were fun. Like, they really were fun. You could play them
oh my gosh, did you
for a
just
long
see that?
time. Yeah, I did that on purpose.
You just landed that.
But and almost landed that too, going straight over to jump sideways. That would have been sick too. But like, compared to the game, I mean, like, look at this game. This is not.
Frickin' Atari.
This is not like something that any of those things could have hung with. But I mean, you think about the processing power. Back then, a processor in a computer. I mean, you're talking about, like, we weren't even up to 400 megahertz in a PC at this point. So a gaming console probably would have had like maybe a 66 megahertz processor, which would be 0.066 gigahertz. And anybody knows anything about processors, like, we're up to 3-4 gigahertz in a PC processor these days, coming out new. So, I mean, and it's not just the speed, it's the size. Like, back then they were like the size of an inch by inch square, and now they're like the size of smaller than a thumbnail. And you add that in with storage. Hard drives used to be the size of my hand, and now they're like a fourth the size of my hand to store 100 times more stuff. It's insane, and that's technology. That's what it does. That's why cars didn't used to have computer chips in them, and now they do, because computers got really, really small. And that's why our phones now have. Our phones are computers, period. I think I hear a whimpering dog. Do I?
Yeah. Look at me, Daddy.
That means I'm going to have to go get him.
Grand
We'll deal with that in a second.
Grand Theft Auto
hold on.
compared to Atari is like,
Yeah, you can't even compare it. You really can't compare it. They're not at all comparable. But
they're
when it went
nothing
from
like each other.
once it got to the PlayStation, it was a pretty clear-cut line from PlayStation 1 to 5. Each time upgrade, by the time we got to PlayStation 3, they're doing Blu-ray. And it was a full-fledged computer. It's not as fast as the ones we have now, but it was a full-fledged computer running HD graphics, and, it had to have a fan to stay cold enough, or it'd overheat and stuff like that. But back in the first PlayStation, Nintendo, those were like, and I guess the real difference is when we cross the line into 64-bit. I'm not really sure. I'm not as up to date on my computer stuff as I used to be. In college, I could build you a desktop out of parts and knew how to put it all together. And I probably could do that now, but there's so many different like protocols with hard drives. Like, it's not just serial ATA anymore. And, there used to be SCSI, and I haven't even heard of SCSI in forever. And now there's all this M2. I mean, it's insane. And that is because of SSD drives and all the difference in, power consumption and size and all that stuff. And it's a pretty complicated, it's a pretty complicated thing, the whole deal. But I know that, is that Tucker?
Yeah.
It is, okay. I know that, it's amazing when you think about the change. But living through it was, those were kind of the games and the titles and the systems that I had. So maybe we'll do an addendum to this. I'm not sure. I feel like something's getting left unsaid, but at the same time, I guess it's partly our little dog's fault, because he's got me feeling all anxious. He's in there whimpering, and I hate to leave him when he needs something. So you're gonna have to kill these while I go and grab him. What? What?
It's just that,
What'd you say?
right now, I'm gonna cut this part out, but it's starting to get to about, 20 minutes, and I mean, I don't want to have to...
Or you can leave it running, and we can finish when I come back over here. Because look what I got.
We got the talk. Okay, now Daddy, we don't want Tucker to take up a full minute of the recording, so I have to cut out all of it.
Yep. So, where did I leave off? The Nintendo to Sega to PlayStation. In between, oh yeah, I know what I left out, some stuff. I left out all of the Game Gears and Game Boys and the
Game Boy
PSP
Advance.
and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the PS Portable was just a flat-out failure.
I had one. I thought it was pretty cool.
It was?
I thought so.
I thought that every portable thing except for the Nintendo Switch sucked.
No, Game Gear was pretty cool. Game Boy was pretty awesome. Back when we had them, they weren't like the coolest thing in the world to ever exist, but at the time it was really cool to be able to carry around a game
Assuming that pretty much
platform.
everything other than the Game Boy
Tucker, what are you
and
doing?
Nintendo
What are you
Switch
doing,
have actually been popular and good.
Yeah.
To the media, that is.
I mean, the Switch is really awesome. Really awesome, and it's the first one to really do it right, because
I mean,
they made it so you can play it on the TV too and have controllers and all that stuff, and that was never something they did before. It was just not portable system, so you couldn't match the two together, and they did good with that. Nintendo did. Holy Toledo, Tucker. He's like, I'm really trying to get off of your lap, and you're not letting me, and that's not cool. But
He's just like full alert mode.
there was a horn outside.
He's just like, oh.
Did you hear it?
Horn?
Oh.
Do I feel horns? Okay, I don't want to have to cut this part out, so let's continue.
So, I guess, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know what else, I don't know a more linear way to go at the line. Like,
Well, I mean, there's also the Wii.
yeah, the Wii, I mean, that was relatively recently. Don't let him jump down. The Wii was in, 2006 or something like that?
Yeah,
And,
2006, December 5th or something.
And, I didn't own a Wii until a couple years ago, so I don't really know. Like, when a Wii came out, I wasn't really doing a whole lot of gaming at that point, so I didn't get a Wii, but, I definitely love the Wii now, and the Xbox 360 I actually really like. The titles and the controller and the way some of the games are set up, but, it's certainly not the newest Xbox, so, there's...
Or PlayStation.
I mean, anybody looking to buy a gaming system, I certainly recommend the Wii and the 360 and the PlayStation 5. This has been good. I don't know what we'll do next, It could be Y2K, it could be apartheid, it could be
9/11.
Could be 9/11, it could be the Berlin Wall coming down. It could be a lot of things. But it will be something, to be sure. And it will be fun. And the main thing that I want everybody to try to do, anybody that hears these words, like I have in so many things, you'll get discouraged, but don't give up. And the only person who's ever going to believe in you like you can is yourself.